England are 2-0 down in the Ashes. Those are words that I have said before. I'm sure I will say them again, but I don't know about you. They feel like they hurt so much more this time around. In this video, I'm going to go back to the second test, try and dissect it best I can, look at some of the messages you've sent me via my social media as well and discuss those, and also look ahead and try and answer, where do England go from here? Is there any hope left in this series? If there is, you could bet your money that we will find it in this video and we will cling onto it and run for the hills with it. If you're new to this channel and it's the first time of watching me, if you do like this video, please hit subscribe. It's the only thing I ask, is a click of the button for you, but it makes a great deal for me who's a small channel trying to grow. Right then, let's do it. Right then, where do we start? England, that was a shit show, wasn't it? Let's be completely honest. There is very few positives we can pick out of that game. The obvious positive, of course, is the Joe Root 100, which we will come on to. What an amazing moment that was. But England just got the basics of cricket wrong in that game. And lots of people will talk about the batting, and that's the easy thing to go, that's where we lost the game. I don't think the batting did lose us the game. The batting wasn't great, but what lost us the game was the fielding, and to an extent the bowling as well. It was some of the worst bowling I've seen from an England side in that first innings for as long as I can remember. We just seemed to panic. I think we expected the new ball to do something early on. We didn't get the early breakthroughs we were looking for. And then we just completely capitulated and we went to the short ball far too early, in my opinion. It's something that always frustrates me about not just this England side, but most England sides. But for me, the main reason, the main negativity from that game comes from the fielding. The fielding in that first innings was horrendous. And I captain my team and I play at a rubbish standard, Cotswold Hills, Division 4 this year, right? Anyone who's from that area knows that's not the highest of standards. But even I say to my lads when we're going out to play cricket, I say the fielding's the basics, right? The fielding is what everyone should be able to do. I'm not asking you to take worldie catches like Will Jacks does, but the basics of cricket is your fielding, right? And that's your base point. If you can field well, I always say to the lads I play with, if we start this game fielding well, we're on it in the field, it shows the opposition that we're up for this game, and the batting and bowling will follow the fielding. And I honestly believe that. That England fielding display was diabolical. Now, the aftermath and the fallout from this game has been pretty severe, both from fans and from pundits too. And it's quite pleasing to see from a pundit's point of view, because I've always felt that sometimes some of the pundits are a bit too soft on this England setup, but there's been some real scathing kind of reviews of this team's performance. Jonathan Agnew was very vocal on BBC TMS. Michael Vaughan has been very outspoken about it, as he quite often is, really, which I do respect about him. But Michael Atherton, Nasser Hussain, all have been really quite cutting about this Bazball approach and how they got it so wrong. And some people will look at that criticism and say it's a bit harsh, it's a bit over the top, because we've been here before. Many England sides have found themselves 2-0 down in Australia. But the reason why this team, I feel, is getting it so much worse and will continue to do so if things continue to go badly is because they could be so much better. I've had Australian fans in my messages saying, oh, you boys said it's the best team you've taken to Australia in so many years. Look at you now. It still is. And I know that's hard to say after the 2 test matches we've seen, but I still persist that that is the best England side we have taken to Australia on paper in many, many years. Now, yes, games aren't won on paper, as we all know, and this is evidence to it, but that's why the criticism is so harsh, because England haven't lost these 2 games on talent and ability. They've lost it through the lack of application and weak mentality. We've shown in parts during these test matches that we have the ability to compete with Australia, but we just can't seem to do it for a long enough period. And that's why I feel like everyone's so gutted and is so perhaps harsh in their criticism, is because this team isn't a million miles away from being so good. Now, the whole Bazball thing, I think people are overreacting somewhat to Bazball. Bazball has failed in Australia so far, but to call Bazball a failure in general, I think is wrong. People do tend to have short memories in sport, and I remember watching that Joe Root, Chris Silverwood era, and it was horrific, right? There was no fight, there was no ambition, there was no desire. We just looked like a weak mentality side. And then Brendan McCullum comes in, has to lift this team from the floor and kind of say, and strip away that pressure. Enjoy your cricket, go out, attack it, be brave, take on the fear. But the problem is, I think we've leaned too much into that kind of no fear, no pressure mentality, to the point where these players look like they're going out there and they're not feeling the pressure. And maybe that was the desire early on. But when you're in Australia, I feel like you should feel the elements of pressure. You should know that you're on the grand stage. This is the pinnacle of cricket for most England and somewhat most Australian fans too. Go out and perform. And there is pressure on your roles. If you fail over there, that could be done in the England side. And it feels to me, and this is only what we can see as fans, it doesn't feel like that's being portrayed within the players. It doesn't feel like they're bothered about the pressure side of it. They still feel like very relaxed. They still feel pretty safe in their role. And England have been loyal to a lot of these players in this squad, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes if you're too loyal to a player in a squad, they become complacent and they don't apply themselves in a way that keeps their spot. And actually, we do need to mention Zak Crawley. I was critical of Zak Crawley in my last video, and it's only fair that if I'm doing that, I also front up and praise him when he's been very, very good. And he wasn't brilliant in that test match. We can still say that he threw his wicket away on 2 occasions, which started the collapse. But to go into that test match, having had a pair and still had the balls to go, do you know what, actually, I'm going to face the first ball. A lot of batsmen in world cricket would have just swapped and let Duckett face the first ball. But either Crawley said that or that was a Stokes thing, I don't know. But either way, I'm giving the credit to Crawley. He's gone, no, I'm not changing. I'm going to go out. I'm going to face Mitchell Starc first ball. Now, regardless of what you think of Zak Crawley and whether you think he should be in England squad or not, I say fair play to him for that. And he did have 2 very good knocks. Should have converted them, should have gone bigger, absolutely. Did he throw his wicket away? In my opinion, yes. But still, it's an improvement. And, if all of the other batsmen in this side can sort of follow Zak Crawley's lead to an extent and have the mentality of I'm going to go out and do better next time, then England might improve in this series. Joe Root, what a fantastic moment that was for him finally getting his 100 in Australia. I hope people don't forget that moment because of how the rest of the game went, because, I think I speak for a lot of England fans when I could say I was hitting every ball with him. I don't think I've ever been more willing a player to get 100. I did a video on my social media, which is kind of me kind of mock crying and being emotional. And I say the word mock lightly because it wasn't that mocked. I generally felt emotional watching him do that. And Joe Root for me is just one of my all-time heroes, not just as a cricketer, but as a person. I think he is one of the living embodiments of what a cricketer should be. He plays the game fairly. He's a gentleman. I just think he's absolutely brilliant. And I think, if any young cricketers who are aspiring to be a cricketer professionally want to choose someone to look up to and aspire to be, Joe Root would be the person I would tell them to look up and be, because I just think he's an absolute hero. It kind of comes onto my other point of him and Ben Stokes. The overriding feeling I have off the back of these 2 test matches isn't anger. It's actually sadness. And I feel really sorry for Joe Root and Ben Stokes. And they won't be feeling that. They won't be feeling sorry for themselves. They'll be trying to rally the team to go again. But you've got 2 amazing players there, 2 generational talents for England. And I feel like they're being let down, in my opinion, by their coaching team, but also by the players around them. And nothing was more evident of that test match. You got Joe Root scoring an amazing 100. You got Ben Stokes. Okay, it was only 50, but it was a gutsy 50. He really dug in. And it's just not being backed up by those around him. And I think Ben Stokes is a captain as well. I think Ben Stokes is a brilliant captain, right? And I think that's why so many people aren't blaming Ben Stokes for this. I think Ben Stokes, potentially under a different leadership, would be one of England's best ever captains, but I worry that his legacy is going to be tainted by this series, and that's not his fault. That's those around him that are letting him down. And I think Stokes' frustration was really felt in that post-match interview, where he kind of called out some of the team and sort of said, Australia isn't a place for weak men, which I've seen some people say that's overly harsh, where for me that's what we want to be heard said. You compare his comments in that, where we really felt his emotion, we felt the sort of the rawness of how he was feeling at the time. Compare that to kind of the media trained, nonchalant, casual Brendan McCullum and Marcus Trescothick. I think most England fans, that just riled them up more. I get there's the unwritten rule of you're not going to slag off your team in the press. Completely understand that, buy into it. But there's still a way you can go out and defend your team, but not frustrate your fans so much. The whole sort of, I think we over-prepared actually. Even if you think that, read the room. It's not what England fans want to hear when that's a contentious issue anyway. But the worst post-match for me was Marcus Trescothick, who, look, you'll struggle to find an England fan that doesn't respect Marcus Trescothick. Wonderful player, wonderful servant to the game. But ultimately, the way England have batted in these first 2 test matches, a lot of the blame has to go on him. He's the batting coach. But then when the batting coach comes out and goes, no, we haven't had any conversations about driving on the up, I think that's either a lie and you're defending your team, in which case fine, but again, read the room. Or if you're genuinely not having those conversations, what are you doing? And of course, the sad news in this series is on both parts really, is that Mark Wood is out and Josh Hazelwood is out as well. And look, for cricket, that's a loss because they're two great bowlers that we want to see. For England, it's good to an extent that Josh Hazlewood is out, but especially when we can't play the current attack, you don't want to add another world-class bowler in there. I think from a Mark Wood point of view, is this the end of Mark Wood now? I really hope it's not, because Mark Wood is one of my favourite cricketers to watch. I think he brings an infectious energy that you can feel through your TV screen. You can tell people love playing with him. We love watching him. He is a wonderful, wonderful talent. He's been so unlucky throughout the years with injuries. And I just hope if this is the end, it doesn't end like this. If you consider this could potentially be his last test series. And we would have, for England fans, within the space of 6 months, we would have had to watch Chris Woakes, who was equally loved, finish his career through injury. Not because of injury, but certainly his last game was the broken arm. And then you see Mark Wood potentially doing the same as well. It's just not the way we want these heroes to go out. We want the heroes to have the Stuart Broad ending and sort of take that final wicket. It's just, I think if this is the end of Mark Wood, I think from an England point of view, want to thank him. I think he's been a brilliant servant. He's been wonderful to watch. And again, much like I said about Joe Root earlier in this video, a great role model and a great way to play cricket. Right, just to round up, I'm going to jump into some messages that have been sent on social media from fellow England fans who are venting their own frustrations. Going to start with Brindle. Brindle says, the bowling attack is scattergun, Pope and Zak are liabilities. I bring back Jimmy, Robbo, maybe Sibbers. I think it's a long way back for Dom Sibley. I think as long as Brendan McCullum is involved, Dom Sibley won't play because he will never, ever fit into this Bazball attacking, aggressive approach of cricket. So the only way back for Dom Sibley is if Brendan McCullum does move on after this series, and I don't really want to talk about that too much. A lot of people are talking about coaches at the moment. I think until the series is done, Brendan McCullum's still our guy. You have to get on board with him. But if they do move on from him after this series, and someone comes in who's a little bit more traditional, wants someone who's going to be a bit more of an anchor role at the top, then for me, Dom Sibley has all the credentials to still do that role. I think parts of his game and some of those flaws that we maybe saw exploited in his test career before have maybe gone, and he should possibly get another chance. I think there's many people in front of him. I think Ben McKinney, Hasib Hamid to an extent, probably Emilio Gay as well is probably ahead of him in the rankings to get back in that England setup, but still want his name to be involved in the conversation, because as long as he's scoring runs at county level, his name should be involved in the conversation. As for Jimmy and Robbo, look, Jimmy Anderson for me should be allowed to play test cricket for as long as Jimmy Anderson wants to play test cricket, even if that means we've got to have Stuart Broad as a subfielder who pushes him down the hill in a wheelchair for him to be able to bowl, because he's that good. He is that legendary in the eyes of Englishmen. He has earned the right to play cricket on his terms. And I think a lot of England fans are frustrated with how the whole Jimmy Anderson thing kind of finished. If it is indeed finished, we don't know. But yeah, absolutely. Jimmy in that bowling attack would have absolutely added something. I know people have said before he wasn't that effective in Australia. It's very different to Australia. Very different Australia to how wickets have been in the past. I think he would be effective out there. What we lacked in that first innings was just control. Just someone who can actually be a senior figure in that bowling attack and go, yeah, lads, here's how it's done. Ollie Robinson, I've spoke about Robinson before. I was on the County Chat podcast. Skillfully, I think Ollie Robinson is still one of our most skillful bowlers. But there's a lot of other factors that come with Ollie Robinson. There's the fitness question marks. There is also the kind of the controversies that have been around him and the ECB. I just think it feels like a long way back for him. But I also made the point before that look, Ollie Robinson isn't good enough to get in the Australian bowling attack. But if he were, they would pick him. They wouldn't care about what he's potentially tweeted in the past. They wouldn't care about what he's done to piss off the ECB. They would just pick him. And maybe that's the difference between Cricket Australia and the ECB. I'll let you judge which is better, which is worse. But a long way back for Ollie Robinson, I think. Anthony Brown says, McCullum, Key and Truskovic, all three, not a clue, sack the lot, start again. It is depressing, isn't it, that we're 2 games into a series and already we're talking about starting again. But that does feel like that's all we can do now. It does... there is still hope in this series. Of course there is. While we're still mathematically in it, there is hope. But it does feel like that's the only thing we can do if we do lose this series catastrophically, is kind of ripping it up and starting again. And I just feel like, how many times as an English fan have we said that? How many times have we been there at the end of an Ashes series and gone, right, let's get rid of that. What are we doing next? It's just depressing. Wolf Fitness, he says 4 bowlers aren't fit enough. They will break down. I agree on that. I think the bowlers are just undercooked. I think, we've got very talented bowlers in that team. Gus Atkinson, I really rate, but, he's coming off the back of a long injury. And Jofra Archer, and this is kind of back to actually by the next comment, which I'll move on to from Left Arm Seamer, who agrees, and he says, really concerned about our bowling attack. We're over-reliant on Archer, who only has that one spell. I think that's what it is, isn't it? We put so much pressure on that opening spell by Jofra Archer, and if it doesn't come off, and if we don't get that early wicket or the early couple of breakthroughs, that's when the plan kind of goes out the window and we seem to start panicking. Look, Jofra Archer is a great talent, but if he's only fit enough to bowl you one spell at the pace we need of him, then don't play him. Helly Willy Woo says, love Ben Stokes, don't want him to retire, on a low, send Brendan home. Yeah, I think that's how I feel about Ben Stokes, really. I absolutely love him. I think he's a warrior, he's a hero, he's been such a great servant to English cricket, and I do think he's a wonderful captain. And if this is going to be his last series, we don't know that, but if it is, and we do have to see him retire on the low, then I think it's no reflection on him, but I think, like I said earlier a little bit, it's a reflection on his teammates who ultimately would have let him down. You know, Ben Stokes, for all he's given English cricket, deserves to go out on his terms in a blaze of glory, hopefully. That's kind of how we all envision Ben Stokes finishing it. And look, to give England fans a bit of hope, maybe he will. You know, if there was any captain you'd want captaining your side when England are 2-0 down in the Ashes, it would be Ben Stokes. And if there was ever a Ben Stokes way to finish a series or potentially a career, it would be from coming from 2-0 down in Australia, in the Ashes, and winning 3-2. Do I think that's going to happen? Not necessarily, but Ben Stokes will. And for me, as long as Ben Stokes believes that can happen, then hopefully by extension, his team will believe that will happen. And if they're all believing, come that first ball in the next test, I'll be believing, and we'll be behind the boys again. What a Ben Stokes way to end it, that he becomes the first person in a gazillion years to come back from 2-0 down. Harry Slister says, bring back half the team being South African. I agree. Those were the glory days. Kevin Peterson, Jonathan Trott. We've had some gems over the year. To the point at one point we almost had too many South Africans, and we actually had to tell some of them to go and play for South Africa. But, you know, obviously Harry's having a laugh there, and I think that's one of the things that I absolutely love about England cricket fans is we've all been here so many times before with our team not doing well, in a bad situation, 2-0 down. And the one thing that never really changes is the reaction to it. Yes, we'll be angry. Yes, we'll criticise. Of course, we'll, as is our right, by the way. I think every fan has a right to be critical of the team, especially when you're spending money to watch that team. But we will always be self-deprecating as well. And, you know, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do on my social media channels with silly videos. You know, you have to laugh, else you'll cry. And if we was all just a nation that just took defeat and all we did was whinge about it, or all we did was just get depressed about it, it makes this sport so much more depressing than it needs to be. We're very good as a nation of finding the ways to laugh about ourselves, and there'll be other moments in this series where we'll have to do that again. And I think we just need everyone to keep bringing that British humour through, because it's hopefully getting all of us through some pretty dark days at the moment. And there we go. All right, again, very much just like most of my videos, me hitting record, verbal diarrhea about all my England traumas, and hopefully there's some stuff in there that you somewhat resonate with. We will be okay. The belief, I know it's low at the moment, but you will start to feel it. And I was like this after the first test. I felt so low for the days afterwards. But then almost day by day, I started to go, yeah, but we could do this. Oh, and we could do this. We could do this. It is the hope that kills you, but that hope will always keep flooding back. And the main thing for me, I'm less thinking about winning this series now or even drawing this series. I just want the series to go on for as long as it can with England still in it, so I can keep enjoying watching cricket. Because I know if we go 3-0 down, to try and get up and watch that fourth test, which I want to do because I want to watch cricket and I want to watch the Ashes because it's brilliant. It's going to be so hard to do if we're 3-0 down. So for our viewing sakes, I just hope England can go and do something special and just step up their game in the next test. Thank you for watching. If you did like this video, please do hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Come on, England.